Have you ever wondered why the worst people seem to succeed? Why do those who lie, manipulate, and trample over others often rise to the top, while those who play fair fall behind? Could it be that kindness and ethics are just obstacles to true power? Friedrich Nietzsche saw human reality with brutal honesty. To him, the world isn't fair, it never was, and never will be. Success often doesn't belong to the most just, but to the boldest, those who aren't afraid to take control, impose their will, and rewrite the rules of the game. But does that mean we need to become ruthless to win? Is morality a weakness? Or is there a middle ground, a way to gain power without losing our essence? Today, we're going to dive into one of the most uncomfortable dilemmas of human existence: power, morality, and the brutal truth about why the worst seem to triumph. And more importantly, we'll discover how we can survive and thrive without becoming like them. So get ready. This won't be a comfortable conversation, but it will be a necessary one. Imagine you're in a grand meeting room. In front of you, two types of people are vying for the attention of those in power. On one side, there are those who follow every rule, work tirelessly, and believe that their talent and dedication will be enough to earn recognition. On the other side, there are those who won't hesitate to manipulate, lie, and walk over others whenever necessary. Now ask yourself, which group is more likely to reach the top? If we're being honest, the answer is unsettling. The world is full of examples of unscrupulous individuals who have triumphed over the most righteous. History shows us emperors, kings, CEOs, and politicians who, despite their morally questionable actions, have achieved absolute power. Meanwhile, kind, ethical, and well-intentioned people often struggle to move forward. This leads us to a fundamental question. Is wickedness rewarded? Is kindness a weakness in the game of power? Friedrich Nietzsche was one of the first philosophers to confront this reality head-on without comforting illusions. He argued that the world has never been fair and never will be. The idea that life rewards the good and punishes the wicked is nothing more than an illusion created to keep people under control. If we look at nature, we see that survival doesn't belong to the most righteous but to the most adaptable. Imagine a lion and a gazelle. The lion doesn't question whether it's fair to hunt. It simply acts because its survival depends on it. The gazelle, no matter how graceful and peaceful it may be, lives at the mercy of the predator. According to Nietzsche, the same principle applies to human society. Those who wait for moral recognition, like the gazelle, often become victims of those bold enough to act. But does this mean we should become predators? For Nietzsche, that wasn't the only answer. He believed that traditional morality, rooted in submission and obedience, was created by the weak as a way to protect themselves from the strong. This value system teaches that humility is a virtue, sacrifice is noble, and we should wait for divine or social justice. However, in practice, these beliefs only keep people in a vulnerable position. And here lies the paradox. While those who follow these rules believe they are doing the right thing, those who break them often reap the rewards. Think of the great empires that dominated history. None of them rose to power through kindness. On the contrary, they were built by those who understood the game of power and knew how to play it without hesitation. Nietzsche called this the master morality and slave morality. Master morality belongs to those who dominate, those who create their own rules and impose themselves on the world. On the other hand, slave morality belongs to those who obey, those who seek validation from others and fear taking control of their own lives. But what if the truth is more complex than that? What if, instead of choosing between being exploited or becoming the exploiter, there's a third alternative? The key to understanding this lies in realizing that power in itself is neither good nor bad. It simply is. Those who know how to wield it thrive, while those who reject it become victims of those who have no scruples. This doesn't mean we need to become tyrants, but rather learn how to navigate the game of power without naivety. If there's one thing Nietzsche teaches us, it's that we can't just sit around waiting for the world to be fair. If we want to claim our space without giving up our values, we need to understand how morality was constructed and how it can be used against us. The idea that morality can be a form of domination is unsettling. From a young age, we're taught that being good, fair, and honest is the right path, that virtue will be rewarded, and that, in the end, the righteous will prevail. But Nietzsche invites us to look at history and the world around us with less naive eyes. If morality were truly a passport to success, why do so many who follow it end up frustrated, exploited, or defeated? Nietzsche believed that morality is not a universal truth but a social construct shaped by those in power. For him, there isn't just one morality but two: master morality and slave morality. Master morality belongs to the strong, the conquerors, those who don't ask permission to exist. They define what is right for themselves, valuing courage, ambition, and self-determination. Slave morality, on the other hand, belongs to the submissive, those who can't impose their will and instead create a value system that glorifies humility, sacrifice, and resignation. History is full of examples of this. Conquered peoples, instead of fighting back against their oppressors, created narratives that claimed true virtue was found in silent suffering and waiting for a justice that never came. Religions preached rewards in the afterlife while their leaders amassed wealth and influence. Political systems convinced the masses that power corrupts, while the rulers did everything possible to stay at the top. What Nietzsche realized is that this form of morality served as a mechanism of control, a way to ensure the weak would accept their position without question. Does this mean that kindness and ethics are just illusions? Not necessarily, but it does mean that if we follow these rules without questioning them, we risk being manipulated by those who understand the power game and have no qualms about playing it. Those who see morality as a set of fixed rules often become easy prey for those who know how to bend or break those rules when necessary. Who hasn't witnessed a just and honest person being deceived by someone who knew how to exploit their naivety? The problem doesn't lie in morality itself, but in how it's used. The world isn't a place where good and evil are rewarded fairly. It's a space where those who understand the invisible rules hold an advantage over those who simply follow what they've been taught without reflection. The masters create values that justify their position of power, while the slaves accept narratives that keep them trapped in a cycle of submission. The most intriguing part is that many accept this condition without even realizing it. They take on exploitative jobs because they believe it's the right thing to do. They allow dishonest people to advance in life because they were taught that questioning and confronting others is aggressive. They wait for divine, social, or cosmic justice to correct the wrongs of the world, not realizing that those who don't wait for justice but act are the ones who shape the world around them. Nietzsche challenges us to abandon this naive perspective. This doesn't mean becoming a villain. It means understanding that the rules we follow aren't natural or unchangeable. They are social constructs. If we want power without becoming tyrants, we must stop waiting for recognition and learn to navigate the game intelligently. We need to realize that what we've been told is right isn't always the best path to the life we truly desire. If we keep accepting morality as an absolute truth, we'll always be at a disadvantage. But if we learn to question it and adapt it to our own reality, we might discover a path that blends strength with integrity. The question isn't whether to be a cruel master or a resigned slave. The real question is, how can we live with power without giving up who we truly are? From a young age, we're taught that good always triumphs in the end. Stories, movies, and religions reinforce the idea that there's a moral order in the universe, an invisible force ensuring that those who act justly will be rewarded, while the cruel and dishonest will be punished. But then we grow up and face a completely different reality. Good people suffer while cheaters thrive. Hard work doesn't always lead to success, and the truth is often silenced by those who know how to manipulate it best. Nietzsche saw this belief in justice as a comforting but dangerous illusion. He drew attention to what psychologists today call the just world fallacy, the tendency to believe that people always get what they deserve. This mindset makes us vulnerable because it leads us to expect that things will simply work themselves out, instead of pushing us to take action and change our own circumstances. The reality is that the world isn't governed by some invisible scale of justice, but by interests, strategy, and power. If we look at history, we'll see that most major changes didn't happen because the universe conspired for good to prevail, but because individuals and groups chose to act. No revolution ever took place just because it was fair. No empire fell simply because it deserved to. What truly shapes the fate of people and societies is the will to power. The ability to influence, to act, to impose one's vision upon the world. Does that mean we should abandon all sense of ethics and become cynical? Not necessarily, but it does mean that if we want to thrive, we need to stop expecting life to be fair. Kindness alone doesn't guarantee success. Simply waiting for recognition for good deeds is a path to frustration. The world belongs to those who understand that the game must be played with strategy and intelligence, not just hope. Nietzsche teaches us that instead of complaining about life's injustices, we should develop our own power. This doesn't mean being dishonest or cruel. It means stopping the reliance on a morality that puts us at a disadvantage. The real mistake isn't believing that justice should exist, but expecting it to manifest on its own, without effort or confrontation. If we want to transform our lives, we must accept this uncomfortable truth. Justice isn't a universal principle. It's something that must be earned. If we don't take control of our own existence, someone else will take it for us. And most of the time, it won't be someone concerned with morality or the well-being of others. What truly separates those who lead from those who follow orders? Is it just a matter of luck, intelligence, or talent? Or is there something deeper at play, a set of psychological traits that determines who rises to power and who remains in the shadows? Nietzsche believed that power isn't granted, it's taken, and those who seize it share specific psychological traits that set them apart from the majority. Modern studies back this up. People who reach the top often exhibit lower levels of fear and guilt, a heightened ability to make quick decisions, and a remarkable indifference to the disapproval of others. They don't hesitate, they don't wait for validation, and above all, they're not paralyzed by conventional morality. That doesn't mean they're necessarily evil. It means they have a sharp instinct for seeing the world as it truly is, not as they wish it to be. There's a clear pattern. The powerful are driven by ambition, control, and often a certain emotional detachment. They don't cling to illusions that justice or goodness will automatically be rewarded. On the contrary, they understand that the rules of the game are flexible, and if they don't use them to their advantage, they'll be used against them. This doesn't mean all successful people are dishonest or manipulative, but hesitation and naivety are rarely found among those who lead. Fear is one of the greatest barriers for anyone who wishes to rise. The fear of rejection, failure, or judgment. Nietzsche teaches us that overcoming this fear is essential. The man who longs to be accepted by everyone will never make bold decisions. The woman who's afraid of displeasing others will remain in the background. History belongs to those who refuse to be shackled by emotional restraints. But there's an important detail. Power gained purely through manipulation and fear has an expiration date. Many who rise this way eventually fall, consumed by their own arrogance or by the rebellion of those they exploited. True power, the kind that lasts, is earned not just through force, but through the ability to build something greater than the ego itself. Nietzsche did not advocate purposeless cruelty. He spoke of the Übermensch, the individual who transcends the limitations imposed by society, who refuses to accept the role of the victim and who shapes their own destiny. This is not the path of empty manipulation, but of creation, creating something that leaves a real impact on the world. And that is the key to balancing power and ethics. The question isn't just how to gain power, but how to use it in a way that doesn't lead to your own downfall. Those who understand this balance don't just command, they leave a legacy. Nietzsche saw the world as a constant struggle between those who impose their will and those who submit. But contrary to what many believe, he didn't advocate for everyone to become ruthless tyrants. His philosophy wasn't an invitation to cruelty, it was a call for self-overcoming. He believed there was a different path between submission and brutality, the path of the Übermensch, the overman or superman. The Übermensch isn't just someone powerful, it's someone who creates their own meaning, refusing to accept the limitations imposed by social conventions, religions, or others' expectations. They don't blindly follow the rules of the game, but neither do they use them solely to manipulate others. Instead of chasing external rewards or recognition, they build their own value system and live by it, without fear or regret. The problem with tyrants and manipulators who gain power is that their success is often fragile. They rise quickly but frequently fall just as spectacularly. This happens because their strength doesn't come from within, it comes from dominating others. The Übermensch, on the other hand, doesn't need that kind of validation. They don't conquer to oppress, they conquer to create, they transform instead of merely destroying. But how can someone become an Übermensch? Nietzsche believed the first step was to let go of the childish hope that the world is fair. This doesn't mean becoming cynical or cruel, rather it means understanding that no one is coming to save you, that there are no guarantees that good will be rewarded, and that if you want something, you have to fight for it. The second step is to develop a will to power. But unlike tyrants who seek power just to control others, the Übermensch seeks power over themselves. They don't act out of fear or a need for approval, but from a desire for self-mastery. This means learning to deal with discomfort, making tough decisions, and taking responsibility for their own destiny. The third step is creating your own values. Most people live by inherited standards, trying to please others or avoid conflict. The Übermensch breaks free from those chains. They define what they consider valuable and live according to that, even if it goes against society's expectations. But there's a fundamental detail. The Übermensch isn't someone who simply rebels against everything and everyone. He isn't an angsty teenager mad at the world, nor a tyrant who imposes his vision through brute force. He is someone who finds purpose and creates something new, whether it's an idea, a piece of art, a business, a movement, or an entirely new way of seeing life. True power doesn't come from deceiving others, but from being able to shape your own reality. While the weak complain about injustice and manipulators exploit that weakness, the Übermensch follows his own path, unafraid of making mistakes, with no need to justify himself. If the world belongs to those who know how to play the game of power, but tyrants and manipulators eventually fall, how can we find a sustainable path to success without losing our integrity? Nietzsche didn't want us to become ruthless predators, but he also despised the idea that we should live bound by a morality that weakens us. The secret lies in balancing strength with authenticity. The great trap that many fall into is believing there are only two options: be exploited or exploit others. Many who recognize the harshness of the world end up embracing cynicism, adopting the belief that to win, you must deceive, manipulate, and destroy. But that's a mistake. Nietzsche teaches us that true power doesn't come from malice. It comes from the ability to create something greater than ourselves. The first step to finding that balance is developing strategic awareness. This means understanding that the world doesn't reward the most righteous but the most prepared. Being ethical doesn't mean being naive. Many people fail because they believe that simply being good will open doors. But those who truly thrive know they must combine emotional intelligence, long-term vision, and the courage to take action. Power doesn't just fall into someone's lap, it has to be earned. The second step is letting go of the fear of displeasing others. The greatest enemy of success is the need for approval. Many people stay stuck in jobs they hate, destructive relationships, or life patterns that don't make sense to them because they're afraid of going against the expectations of others. Nietzsche teaches us that only those who break free from this mental prison can truly live. The Übermensch doesn't seek society's approval, he transcends it. But that doesn't mean acting impulsively or aggressively. Lasting power doesn't come from brute force, but from respect and influence. The most successful people aren't those who trample everyone around them, but those who know how to inspire and lead. This brings us to the third point: creating value. People who only exploit others might rise quickly, but they always fall in the end. True power belongs to those who build something meaningful. It could be a business, a movement, knowledge, or art. Anything that has a real impact. When you create value, you become indispensable. You don't need to manipulate to stay on top because your presence makes a difference. The final step is to develop emotional self-sufficiency. Nietzsche believed that the greatest strength comes from within. The Übermensch doesn't need external validation because he trusts himself. He doesn't act out of fear, but out of a desire for growth and self-overcoming. This means learning to deal with loneliness, rejection, and uncertainty without straying from your own path. The world doesn't favor the naive, but it also doesn't reward manipulators in the long run. The secret is to learn how to navigate reality with intelligence without giving up your true essence. You don't need to become a tyrant to succeed. Just stop expecting the world to be fair and start acting with awareness and strategy. If there's one essential lesson from Nietzsche, it's that power isn't about controlling others. It's about mastering yourself. When you become unshakable from within, the world ceases to be a threat and becomes territory to be conquered, not through brute force, but through the ability to create, influence, and transform. And that is the true victory. So let's go back to the initial question. Why do the worst people seem to succeed? Nietzsche showed us that the world isn't fair, and those who understand the game of power tend to stand out. But that doesn't mean we need to become cold, manipulative, or ruthless to win. True power doesn't come from exploitation, but from the ability to shape reality according to your own will. The great trap of traditional morality is making us believe that simply being good is enough. But history and life show us that this isn't the case. Success doesn't belong to those who just wait for recognition. It belongs to those who take the initiative, understand the dynamics of power, and use that understanding to create something greater. Nietzsche offers us an alternative path between weakness and cynicism, the path of the Übermensch. This concept isn't about dominating others, but about surpassing yourself. It's about abandoning the need for approval, creating real value, and developing an unshakable inner strength. The world belongs to those who dare to step out of passivity and face reality with courage and strategy. You don't need to be cruel to succeed, but you do need to be strong. Being good isn't enough. You need to be wise. And now the question is yours to answer. Will you keep waiting for the world to be fair, or will you start writing your own rules? If this video made you see the world through a different lens, then the mission was accomplished. Nietzsche doesn't offer comfortable answers. He brings truths that challenge us to break free from passivity and take control of our own lives. Now, let me know in the comments, what idea hit you the hardest? Do you believe it's possible to balance power and integrity, or do you think the world forces us to play dirty to win? Let's share some thoughts. I read every comment. And before you go, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Here, we don't hand out easy answers, but reflections that just might transform the way you see life. Hit that notification bell because there's plenty more coming your way. Now, 2 videos are popping up on your screen. Which one will blow your mind first? There's only one way to find out. Watch and see. See you there.